Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Growth Reframed. We are so happy you're here. Whether you're watching us over on YouTube or listening to us wherever you get your audio podcast, again, we're so happy that you've joined us. Typically, I'm here with my co-host, but today it's going to be just me. And to be honest, I don't know how long this episode will be. It may end up being shorter. It may end up being longer. As Meghan would tell you, I have a history of maybe being a little bit long-winded. But there's been something on my heart recently, and it's, to be honest, it's been in there for a long time. And it's this idea of growth. It's the idea of growth reframed, reframing your thinking on growth, which is the whole idea behind our podcast. A lot of our discussions recently, just personally off camera between Meg and I, and a lot of our discussions just from talking to other people who have kind of delved into the personal growth space, there seems to be a little bit of a common trend as far as how they take things on. And I lovingly refer to it as the growth hangover. Now, we've all been there, right? We've been out, we've been at the bar, we've been out at the club, we've been out partying, and maybe just hanging out with some friends. We have a few extra drinks that we shouldn't have. But in that moment, man, when we're out, it feels great. It feels amazing. It feels like everything's going according to plan. It feels like almost like you're untouchable, like you can do anything, like you can accomplish anything. And at the start of that night, it feels great. But then we've all been there, right? You wake up the next morning after that exhilarating night, and you don't feel so great anymore. You feel tired. You feel like you got a headache. You feel stressed out. You feel strung out. You feel all kinds of emotions. And if you're anything like me, you would normally say the comment of, oh, I'm never doing that again, or I am never drinking again. And that's why I call it the growth hangover. Because I think when we all take on this idea of growth, we come from a place of great intentions. We come from a place of just setting high goals, wanting to do this, wanting to accomplish something, wanting to do something amazing, wanting to be a better version of ourselves. And in that journey of trying to be a better version of ourselves, we tend to push ourselves a little too hard. We ride that wave a little too much. And then usually, if you follow the path, at least for me and a lot of the people I've talked to, you end up waking up one day with that growth hangover. So that exhilaration that you felt at the beginning of that journey, and I know for me, I felt that way. I felt like I was untouchable. I felt like, man, this is it. I've discovered what I need to be doing with my life. I've discovered how to be the best version of me. I've discovered that I can do amazing things. And y'all, I'm not trying to say you can't do amazing things. So don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there's highs and lows to this idea of personal growth. And if we're not careful, we might wake up one day and be feeling that growth hangover. Now, for me, I went through that full and tenfold, and I've shared it on this podcast a lot, but I went through that journey. I sat there for a lot of my life not understanding that I was living, to be honest, in a very fixed mindset. I didn't think you could learn and grow and change. I thought, well, that you're just the way you are, and you have the skills you have, and that's basically it. But then I realized if I pushed myself, if I was resilient, if I powered through, if I pushed myself into that discomfort like everyone always talks about in the space, then, man, doors would open for me. Opportunities would open for me. I ended up talking to people I never thought I'd talk to. I ended up doing things like I never thought I'd be doing, like this podcast, like talking to you on camera right now, like doing all these things, like sharing my feelings and emotions and being vulnerable. All great things. But then I found myself squeezed into a tighter space because the expectations were so high. And you might find yourself there today. You're wondering why you're feeling strung out. You're wondering why you feel tired. You're wondering why, if you're pursuing a better version of yourself, you feel worse every day. And a lot of times it can be because we place so many unrealistic expectations on our life, on our experience, on what that experience is going to deliver, on what it's supposed to mean as a whole. And sometimes life is just a process of living life, of actually taking it day by day. But a lot of times we want to forecast and we want to put things out and we want to say, well, we need to accomplish this, or this is the mountaintop. Or once we get the mountaintop, then we just move that mountain a little higher, a little further up, and we continue to push ourselves. And again, that's fine. That's okay. We can push ourselves. I continue to push myself to this day. But the balancing act that I have trouble with is, so I started out at the peak of this and I said, this is what I want to do. Man, this is it. This is what my life's going to be. This is how I become that version. This is what I'm going to do. And I rode that wave for a long time. And I was at an all-time high in my personal growth journey. But then at some point I plateaued and I wasn't doing as much as I thought I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't doing enough no matter how much I did. I was waking up at 4 a.m. every day. I was going to sleep later every night, and I was constantly trying to do things to the point of exhaustion and burnout and not allowing myself to have an out, because if I want to be this version, then I have to continue to push through. But then at the end of it, I was so exhausted and it got so to the point and it got such a challenge that I ended up going to therapy, something I had never done in my life or never even considered doing. Because I was so confused, because I'm like, if this is what I'm supposed to do and this is how people live and this is how all the people that I'm looking at in the space are doing it and they're fine and they're great, then man, I should be doing that. And I fell into that comparison game, y'all. I looked at everyone else and I said, well, their version, I like their version. I want to be that version. So then I have to do that. But then I was in that guilt shame cycle, because when I didn't want to do it anymore, when I felt like it was harming me, when I felt like I wasn't showing up the right way, when I felt miserable most of the time, I just sunk further and further into the valley, because I felt worse and worse about myself. Because if I'm supposed to do that and that's how I become the better version of myself, then why do I feel like the worst version of myself right now? And that's the low of personal growth. That's that hangover I'm talking about, because it's great for a time and everything can be great for a time. But then the more it goes on and goes on and goes on, you have to re-look at it. You have to reinvestigate. You have to ask the question, is this really what I want to be pursuing? Is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really the direction that I want to go? And y'all, I've talked to and I've been friends with so many people who I don't even think recognize the fact that they're going through this growth hangover, that they've been on that wave and now they're coming down and they're in a really dark place. And to be honest, I've seen a lot of people that have moved away from the growth space and have a real negative feeling about the growth space because they feel like it's pushing a narrative that's an impossibility for your life. It's putting unrealistic expectations on your life. And look, again, I'll back up and say, I believe in big dreams. I believe in pursuing things. I believe all of that if you want to. And understand, not everyone wants to. And understand that just because you want to or wanted to for a time doesn't mean that you can't change and grow and decide that you want something else, that you have other priorities, that there's other things you want to do. Which means it's okay to be in a season of rest. Oh, man, that's a crazy idea. It's okay to rest. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to say it's no longer serving you and you don't want to do it anymore. Those are all okay. It takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of internal work. Because the thing is, when you start to delve into these things and you want to be a better version of yourself, then you constantly are looking at everything else and you're saying, okay, I want everything to be better. And then you start nitpicking at every single thing that you have. Maybe your relationship's pretty great, but it could be better. Maybe your job's pretty great, but it could be better. Maybe your friendships are pretty great, but they could be better. Right, like you can pursue things being better, but the constant pursuit of that can get exhausting because you can never sit in a place of just chill. You can never sit in a place of contentment. And in this space, we a lot of times don't say that you can be content. And even if we say the words, I don't see anyone practicing it. But I've been in that growth hangover space, and now I've seen so many people I love, so many people that I respect. They go on that cycle and they fall off, or worse. They end up being depressed. They end up being empty. They end up being burnt out. And I've been there, and if I'm being honest, I'm there a lot of the time still today, even though I know these things. I try to constantly remind myself to be present in the moment. If I'm there, to be fully there. If I want to pursue something, I can, but I do need to have some sort of realistic expectation, even though the world tells me that I shouldn't, that I should continue to push through, even when I'm tired, and even when I'm burnt out, and even when I'm stressed, and even when I'm depressed. I'm supposed to just continue to push through. And that led me to one place, y'all, and that was therapy. Sometimes I wonder whether I need therapy again, just because I try to have it both ways. I try to say I want to do this personal growth thing, but I also want to give myself time. And it's a constant balancing act. And I don't think there's a perfect balance for any of it. A lot of times we talk about the work-life balance. I don't think that's possible. I think we go through seasons of time where it becomes easier and seasons of time where it becomes more difficult. And we have times where maybe I'm doing okay, but Meg's not doing okay, or maybe you're doing okay, but your partner's not doing okay. It constantly is an ebb and flow when it comes to life. But I don't think that balance is possible. I think you got to give yourself a lot of grace. I think you got to allow yourself to pursue the things you want to pursue. And if you don't want to pursue them, you have to allow yourself that break. And even as I say that, I hear my inner voice saying, well, you're going to give yourself a break, which means you're going to you let yourself off the hook. You're going to allow yourself to not pursue that right now. And you really should be pushing through and continue to do that. Maybe sometimes that's what you should do, if that's right for you, and maybe not. You need to recognize what's right for you. And I would argue that if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling all those emotions, if you're kind of vibing with me right now about how you are feeling, maybe that's your body, maybe that's yourself, maybe that's your mind, maybe that's everything in the universe telling you that you need to relax, that you need to peel back, that you need to let some of those things go. Because you can be in pursuit of one thing, but you don't need to be in pursuit of 1,000 things. And maybe you don't need to be in pursuit of anything right now, whether other than just feeling better about yourself, feeling content with yourself where you're currently at. It's funny, Meg and I talk about it a lot, but we're a personal growth podcast, and we don't really believe in personal growth. And it's like, but I do somewhat. There are positives to it. There are positives to the fact that you can change and grow, that you don't have to be stuck where you're currently at. You can pursue more things. You can do more things if you want to. I love that side of it. But I dislike the side that says you have to continue to do it even in the face of being tired, even in the face of everything that's telling you not to, you have to continue to. And then I see so many of my friends that have gone through the process and they no longer do any of it anymore because they've burnt themselves out. And to me, life is a marathon, y'all, not a sprint. So I need to make sure that the things and practices and habits and patterns and everything else that I'm following get me to a place where 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I'm in a great place, that I'm able to find that joy, that I'm able to find that contentment. What point does it make to go out and pursue and push yourself and grind yourself down to nothing to the point where you're in therapy or worse? Where does that get you? Where does that allow you to be? I don't think it puts you in the best place possible. So my advice to you is to practice some self-compassion today, is to give yourself grace, is to have one of my favorite things, those mirror conversations where I do it all the time still, y'all. I look in the mirror and I have a conversation with myself, and you might think, Brandon, you're weird, and I probably am a little weird. But I look in the mirror and I have a conversation with myself, and I'm real intentional about probing, asking the questions of why. Why am I doing this? Why am I feeling this way? You have to take a pulse of your life and say, okay, this is how I'm showing up today. This is how I'm feeling. So why is that happening? What are the things surrounding me that are causing me to feel that way? And which of those things can I let go? And which of those things can I push out? And which of those things can I continue to pursue? What's the avenue I need to go? And being real intentional about that allows you time and just peace and energy to be able to pursue and figure out what you want to pursue and go the best avenue for you. And sometimes, most of the time in my life, it just means taking a step back for a minute to figure that out. And I'm here to tell you today that it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay if right now you're feeling exactly what I'm saying. It's okay to step back. It's okay to reassess. It's okay to relook at things. It's okay to ask the question, why am I even doing this in the first place? But you have to allow yourself the time and space to do that. And if you don't, unfortunately, it's not going to go well because you're just going to continue to pursue something, but you're going to give it a terrible effort because over time, you can only push on for so long. And then that wick, that energy, that perseverance, it will burn out if the motivation behind it isn't pure. So y'all, I hope you aren't suffering today from the growth hangover. Maybe you've never heard the word growth hangover in your life. I think I made it up myself. I'll copyright it later. Just kidding. But that growth hangover is real. And you don't want to wake up someday and say, and I am never doing that again, and then give up on pursuing anything again because you had that negative experience. I'd rather you take a step back, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to figure out what direction or what thing do you want to pursue, and do you even want to continue pursuing it at all? I don't know how short that episode was, y'all, but I hope that you'll reach out to us at Growth Reframed if you have any questions. If you're feeling this, if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. You can also email us hello@growthreframed.com. We love y'all, and we'll see you next week.